Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Hope everybody's doing fantastic. We got another Heat Summer League game coming up later on tonight. We will have a recap of that. Hopefully we get a more relaxed Miami Heat summer squad. I did feel like the squeaky cheeks were out there for a lot of the young guys. The jump shots looked a little tight on you. Loosen up a little bit. Get some things to drop. And we could have more of a fun time than a 40-point blowout to the Golden State Warriors. But hopefully tonight is a better performance. They got the Sacramento Kings version of the Summer League team coming up later on today at 4:30. So we'll check them out. They won their first game. I think their first game was against Bronny. I think it was. So those guys, Lakers end up taking on the Golden State Warriors tonight. That's their matchup. But speaking of the Kings, we can kind of put to bed a silly sauce chapter of the summer. DeMar DeRozan, he ends up with the Sacramento Kings. That news coming around last night around 10:30. It was funny enough, right after the Summer League game, and I did my little quick recap. Obviously not the most detailed because it was a 40-point blowout, and Khalil Ware was kind of the only story of yesterday with his box score filling. But I go to bed. I have a little sleepy poos pretty early, and I wake up around 12:30. One of those where pops up. You just have no idea what time it is. So look over at my phone, and I see all the DeMar DeRozan news, and then my immediate reaction is, all right, what happened in the Masvidal Nate Diaz fight? And I actually am looking on Twitter real quick, and I'm like, the fight hasn't started yet? That fight didn't start until 1:15 South Florida time yesterday, which was crazy. So I ended up getting up and watching the entire fight. But yes, in the immediate aftermath, which, by the way, I thought Jorge, I thought you had the better shots. Thought it was a close fight because I knew how the fight was going to get scored. But some of those lopsided, those 7-3s, 8-2 scorecards for Nate Diaz, those are crazy. But I digress. So the Kings yesterday, they acquired DeMar DeRozan in a sign and trade. He gets a 3-year, $74 million deal. The Kings end up trading Harrison Barnes to the San Antonio Spurs. And then there's some other stuff that goes to the Chicago Bulls to pull this off. So, they make their move. And, I think boost a roster that maybe need a little bit of a veteran presence. I think the Kings probably disappointed with where they were last year. Take a step back. Does feel like with the DeMar DeRozan thing, it was a weird chapter. I gave you my theory as to why it was kind of kicked around. Why was Miami maybe even exploring it? First I think maybe the agent had a lot of respect for the Miami Heat, seeing if they could work it, make it happen. It was a lot, and you have to give up. You'd have to give up somebody young. It doesn't necessarily make the most basketball sense in the world. I got to be honest with you guys. As far as deals not happening, this was about as ho-hum a reaction from him. I was like, all right, whatever. Even the DeJounte Murray deal that happened this summer, I was like, he gonna get in on that? That one, I genuinely, felt a little sting. Obviously, Spida signing his extension, you feel a little sting. The DeRozan thing, I didn't feel any of that. I really was like, that is different for different sake. I'm not exactly. While I do want the Miami Heat to shake it up and I do want significant change, DeRozan for me, giving that kind of money to a guy at his age, when he hasn't really done anything for your organization, I just think I just didn't love the fit of it. I would have talked myself into it, of course, if it did end up happening, but I really didn't think it was going to happen. It just felt too strange. So he ends up going to Sacramento, and Miami is left at this spot right now where I don't even want to call DeMar DeRozan a whale at this point because I don't think that he's a whale. But what are the significant moves that the Heat can make? I guess if you're going to look at this from a pie in the sky standpoint, I suppose you could say a move like this takes the Kings out of a Larry Marketing type of type of sweepstakes, knowing the money that he's going to get, knowing the money that they already have on the books for these three guys. I don't know that for sure. I haven't really looked and dove into it, but I would imagine just on its face, having to give $25 million a year on top of the money they have to pay Fox and Sabonis. I would imagine also having to give a max extension to Lauri Markkanen makes this a little bit more difficult for them to pull off. So they were one of the rumored teams that was out there if the Markkanen sweepstakes are legit. You guys have known on that, I know that the Heat have been tied to him recently, but my feelings of it are it is Danny Ainge. You got to know that he wants to have picks. Now, the market does appear like it is drying up somewhat for Lauri Markkanen. Like, who is the team that's really going to make a play? Because the Kings are one of those teams. Warriors are one of those teams. And then Miami has, of course, been rumored. A little bit of Spurs in there as well. So what is this? Does this completely cool off the market? And here's the thing with that. They would have to, I think the extension date, is August 6th for him. And if they have to give him the extension on that date for them to be eligible to trade him in the year. So if I was a little mistaken in thinking that there was no clock on the Jazz to get a trade done, but there actually is. If Lauri Markkanen signs that at any point after August 6th, he can't be traded. I think, for 6 months, and 6 months would be past the NBA trade deadline. So there actually wouldn't be a Lauri Markkanen trade. So there is a little bit of a month clock here for the Utah Jazz to figure out, are they trading him? Are they not trading him? But my point it's kind of like a mini rush because, again, I don't have any reason to think that this guy at his stature on the team is not going to sign a big ass extension and then get moved. But it just might not be something that happens for a year. Unless he feels like he goes into a year, he just wants to go do his own thing and opt out and go into free agency. And then I suppose you could look at the Heat and say, well, they got, Jimmy coming off the books. They technically could buy out Duncan Robinson and they could get into the game like that if that's something that did come to fruition. But there is a little bit of a clock on the Utah Jazz to decide really whether or not they want Lauri Markkanen on their roster this year via signing him an extension. Now, if there's no extension, if they don't offer him an extension, well, then you basically have this, big carrot to dangle all year. But Danny Ainge, that's always an interesting one because it's like, well, are you going to get the most by him going to where he wants to go? Are you going to get the most by him, making a bidding war amongst contenders that might want him in the middle of the year? So those are going to be all interesting things to definitely check out. But the DeRozan thing comes off the board, and then the other one that's I still think is fun to look at is the Trey Young situation and seeing if anything comes of that, if there is going to be any movement of Trey Young, if there's any rumors or fodders of Trey Young. All the reports are that the market is like non-existent, very, very frosty when it comes to Ice Trey. I feel that chill. So we'll keep it. We'll take a little looky-loo on that. It was cool to see, by the way. I talked a little bit about this in the last video, but Bam Adebayo signs his extension. And it was cool to see the video the Miami Heat put out. And then it was also awesome to see, some of his teammates. Duncan Robinson comes out there for Bam Adebayo after. And he posts, "Earn that" for Bam Adebayo. So happy for his guy. His agent, he put, "Overworked and underappreciated. One of the top two-way players in the game. Brings it every day. Proud of you, Bam. Well-deserved on the max extension." And, really cool. $168 million he ends up signing with the Miami Heat. Tyler Hero put a little salute on social media for him as well, as the Heat big man is now locked in and fortified with the Miami Heat for years to come. Wouldn't even be surprised if this. I don't think this is even going to be his last one. So. He did deserve that. Really, really cool. And, now we turn our attention to his future front court mate tonight and see what Ware, Larson, and the boys can get going for this Heat roster as they try and bounce back from a real stinker in the first one. But I still think there was some good, Keyshawn Johnson with some of his defense plays, getting stuff out in the break. That's going to be like, this dude has a golden opportunity. You want to talk about a guy who, if he can make a defensive impact right away with Caleb Martin gone, officially on the 76ers, and if Haywood Highsmith doesn't get that guy's, that window opens up quick right away for some of these young pups to go out there and make an impact. But I did just feel like nervous Nelly's got to the team a little bit. You could see, you notice the only guy who looked like he was in a basketball game of this on the Heat side was Cole Swider. Cole Swider was just out there shooting and lighting it up, and everybody else, it just you could. I feel like you could feel little bright lights in it, but it's all right. We got another one later on this afternoon.